Hey everyone, it's Mafalda and welcome to my January favorites. So the first month of 2021 has come and gone and it lasted 100 plus years. I don't know why, but it lasted so long, it wouldn't end. And yeah, but it was overall a pretty good month, at least for me, in terms of reading and in terms of the things that I consumed. Not for the world though, but that is a whole other story. So like in my previous favorites video, first I will talk about the music that I've been listening to in January, then I will talk about the movies that I watched and loved, and finally I will talk about books, obviously, so my favorites of the month. So as for music, I only have one favorite and one favorite only, and I feel like it's everyone's favorite, and I feel like it's going to be the song of the year, honestly, and it's already January and yeah, the stakes are really high. And that song is Driver's License by Olivia Rodrigo. I was so excited for this release. I love Olivia. I've been following her since I watched High School Musical, the musical, the series last year, and I just think she's the best. She's so talented. She's 17. She's so much younger than me and she makes me feel like a failure, but I love her so much. She's just crazy talented and I love everything she does, and I was so excited for this release when she finally announced it, and then it came and it's glorious, it's beautiful, it's everything I wanted. I kind of wish I was going through a heartbreak right now because this is the perfect heartbreak and breakup song ever in the world. It's just so great. I was listening to the song on repeat in my car especially, and whenever I was in my car listening to the song I was crying. That's how much, like, the emotional impact this song had on me. Oh my god, it's great. I just can't even put it into words. And all the records she broke and just like everything and all of the drama, honestly, that was also a favorite of mine this month, but I'm not gonna mention that. But yeah, she's great, so I highly recommend Olivia Rodrigo, and also High School Musical, the musical series if you haven't watched it, because I know that a lot of people didn't know about Olivia Rodrigo before the song was released, so please go watch High School Musical, the musical series on Disney Plus. It's great, it's amazing. So yeah, so that was my only music favorite. So now for movies, I have two different movies that I watched and I really liked. The first one is actually a documentary that was released last year and it's called Feels Good Man and it's by Arthur Jones. And this documentary is so great. I haven't heard that many people talk about, and I think everyone should watch this. I think I say this about every documentary I mention, but this one is just really great. I feel like everyone can enjoy this one. And this is basically about Pepe the Frog, his creator, and how a harmless drawing from a cartoonist turned into a shit show online, especially on 4chan. Pepe the Frog, if you didn't know, because I didn't, honestly, online on certain like forums and places like 4chan, it is used as basically hate language, and there are a bunch of memes of Pepe the Frog as like a Nazi and just like the worst thing ever. And it's about the history of how Pepe turned into something bad, and also about the creator trying to make Pepe good again, because obviously he didn't want any of that to happen to his creation. And it's just so interesting. I highly recommend this one. And the next movie that I want to mention is Princess Protection Program from 2009, starring Demi Lovato and Selena Gomez. I watched this movie with Casey actually. We watched it together and it was just so great. Probably if I watched it for the first time right now as a 22-year-old, I wouldn't have liked it, but it just brought back so many memories of me watching that movie for the first time. I love the nostalgia of watching old DComs, so yeah, it was pretty great. It was pretty great. And also I just miss Selena and Demi together as friends. They had the best friendship. And also Selena Gomez as an actress. Like, she doesn't make movies anymore and I think it's wasted potential. So yeah, that's my take on it. And now for the books that I read in January. I read a total of 10 books in the month of January, which was a great start to the year and I'm super happy about that number. I'm not going to talk about every single book that I read in the month of January. I'm only going to mention my favorites, and I think I have 5 books to talk about. So yeah, let's just get started. The first book that I read in January was a great start to the year, and it was The Poppy War by R.F. Kuang. I do have my Treat Yourself Readathon vlog on my channel already where I talk about this book because I read this book in that week. And this book is inspired by Chinese mythology, and it follows our main character Rin, who has just aced her Keiju. I hope I'm pronouncing this right. And the Keiju is a test to get into Sinigard, which is the most elite military academy in Nikon, and she gets in. And there she is very underestimated by her classmates who just think she's a peasant girl from the south, but there she discovers that she has some magical powers and that she can really help with the third Poppy War that is coming. And yeah, this book was just great. Like I said, I've talked about this book at length in my vlog if you want to check it out. But basically, I loved everything about this book. I love the main character Rin. She's a badass and I love her. I love the writing. It's beautiful and it was so easy to read this book of like 520 pages in 1 week, which I never do, honestly. So it was super easy to read because of the writing and the way it is told. And the only main criticisms that I have for this book is that, first of all, I thought that the pacing was a bit fast for me because just like so much happened in these 500 pages, like so much. And because the pacing was so fast, we were also introduced to so many characters, and like the first half of the book we were introduced to a bunch of characters, and then in the second half we were introduced to new characters, and it was just really hard to keep up. But I feel like I say this with every fantasy series, so maybe this is just a me problem. Maybe it is. But other than that, I really loved it, and I'm not really one to like fantasy series that much, but I am excited to continue with this one this year. And yeah, that was my first read of 2020. And it was a 4.5 stars out of 5 stars. Then the next book was actually my first 5 stars of the year. And I love this book and I want to continue reading more by this author because this was my first work from them, and it is Dig by A.S. King. And where do I begin to explain this book? I just don't even know how to explain it, and I don't think I ever did in my other videos in my TBR or anything. I feel like if I try to explain this book, I will give some spoilers, but basically it follows a bunch of characters like every other book does, and it's just so complex. I don't even know how to explain it. But like, we follow a character who is called Freak. We follow a character that is called the Shoveler. It follows a character called Can I Help You? And it also follows an old couple called Marla and Gottfried. Gottfried? I hope that's right. And it's such a wacky book, and you kind of feel like nothing is making sense, but then at the end everything makes sense and everything comes into place, and it's just so good. I don't even know how to explain it. But I just love how this book was done. I love the writing, I love how raw the characters were, and I love the discussions in this because it deals a lot with racism and privilege, a lot of privilege, and I just saw a lot in my life in this book. That's why I loved it so much. I'm out of breath talking about this, but it was just so good. I highly recommend picking this book up and not knowing anything, because that's what I did. And at first I was like, this book is so weird, I don't understand anything. And then by the end I was just like, this is amazing. So yeah, this was my first 5-star of the year. I'm so excited to pick up other A.S. King books. And yeah, this was great. Then the next book that I wanted to mention and that I listened to on audiobook is The Deep by Rivers Solomon. And I actually heard about this book because my boyfriend is a really big fan of the rap band Clipping, and this book was basically inspired by a song of theirs. And I honestly had no idea, so I just decided to pick up the audiobook when he mentioned that book to me, and it was so great. It was so imaginative and so original, and I really like that in books. And also the writing was really great. And this book is basically about the descents of African slaves that were thrown overboard to the sea, and those descendants turned into mermaids underwater. And yeah, it's basically a book about mermaids, which was probably my first one. And between these mermaids, no one really knows why they're there and what really happened and the real history of their background, except for one person who is called the historian, and it follows our main character Yetu, who has just become the historian and is trying to figure out what happened and trying to come to terms with their past, which is so full of trauma. And it was just such an interesting concept. It was so full of history and just the world building was great. And like I said before, I love the writing. So it was such an original story and I highly recommend the audiobook, but at the same time I feel like I would have enjoyed my listen of this better if I had the physical book with me. But still, I really enjoyed it. I gave it 3.5 stars and I will definitely look out for other books by River Solomon in the future because the writing was great. Then the next book that I really loved in January was Watch Over Me by Nina LaCour. This was for the 20-something book club, our first month of the book club. And this book follows Mila, who has just gotten out of the foster care system and she doesn't really have a home and a family. And one day she gets the opportunity to go work and live at a farm. And so she takes the opportunity. And what she's not ready for is for that farm to have ghosts and her past trauma and past memories to come resurfacing. This book was my first Nina LaCour. I'm so excited to pick up her other books as well. And it was just really fascinating. I basically read this in one sitting. I really liked the atmosphere of this book and also the characters were pretty great. I was expecting a bit more of the ending because I was expecting like gut-punching ending and I didn't really have that. I felt like the ending was a bit underwhelming, I guess. But I love how this book deals with trauma and overcoming that trauma, and I think it was a beautiful way to deal with such a hard topic. And yeah, it was pretty great. I gave it 3.5 out of 5 stars. Then the next book that I wanted to talk about is Punching the Air by E.B. Zaboy and Yusuf Salam. And I listened to this book also on audiobook and it was a great audiobook, so lyrical and so beautiful, and it's such a hard topic to deal with as well. If you don't know, Yusuf Salam is one of the men that was wrongly accused of raping a woman in the Central Park jogger case. And this book is really inspired by his story. And this book is about a black teen named Amal who is also wrongly accused of something he didn't do and he ends up going to prison. And it's about his time there and his time trying to stay sane and trying to fight for the truth in a system that doesn't want him to succeed and to find freedom. And this is such an impactful story and it is also told in verse, which I really love. And the audiobook was great and I just really like how it was told. This is such an impactful story and I highly recommend the audiobook if you want to try it. And yeah, I give this book 3.5 out of 5 stars. And that concludes my favorites of January. I had a really good month. I'm hoping February will also be great. If you enjoyed this video, please give it a thumbs up and subscribe down below if you haven't, and I will see you on my next one. Bye!